Welcome back to Unmask Your Mind, the podcast where we explore the ins and outs of mental wellness, neurodivergence, and healing. I'm your host, Annie Sousa, and today we're diving into a topic that affects almost everyone at some point: toxic relationships. Whether it's a friend, a family member, or colleague, navigating toxic dynamics can be emotionally exhausting. So, in this very snowy, cold winter day, we're going to talk about what makes someone toxic. And more importantly, how can we protect our peace without feeling guilty, without any guilt? So let's all dive in. What is toxic? Let's start understanding toxic behavior. So to start, I want to emphasize that calling a person, someone toxic, isn't about labeling them as unworthy or broken. It's about identifying behaviors that repeatedly harm our emotional well-being. So oftentimes toxic traits stem from unresolved pain, insecurity, or trauma. So while this doesn't excuse their actions, and guys, I'm not saying that I'm excusing the actions, it does give us some context. Now, I talked about in other podcasts, in other episodes of the podcast, about how we have experiences from our past that shape us, how the way that our parents, our schools, something in our childhood may have shaped us. This is what I'm talking about. But it doesn't give us an excuse to be X, Y, or Z. It doesn't give us an excuse to behave a particular way or to be mean to people. I guess what I'm trying to say is this, that it's just to give you context. So here are some common traits that can signal a toxic pattern. What are some toxic, what are some signals? Sorry about that. My dog started barking. I know Cooper is trying to make up an appearance on the podcast. So one of the patterns is constant criticism and blame. So this is something that I'm sure this resonates with a lot of you. Toxic individuals often do point out flaws in others, but rarely own up to their mistakes. So this is a person that when you go to them, they're going to be amazing at telling you that, not validate your feelings and tell you that it's a problem with you, and quickly get defensive. They did no evil. They did no wrong. You are the problem. So for example, when you express hurt, they might say something like, you're too sensitive, or oh, there isn't a problem with you, or you are so catastrophizing, or everything is so negative with you. So much drama. Instead of validating your feelings, they just deflect. This constant undermining, honestly, guys, it can chip away at your self-esteem. Because you start feeling, instead of feeling validated, you just feel that your self-esteem is just going away. So undermining can chip away at your self-esteem. You start double guessing. Is he right? Is she right? Am I actually dramatic? Am I actually too sensitive? Is this something to actually feel bad about? Am I overreacting? And slowly you start feeling that there's something, your self-esteem starts taking a toll, starts taking a hit. Number 2, manipulation and gaslighting. Now, this one is a big one, guys. This one, I want to take our time with this one because I know a lot of people use the word narcissism, gaslighting all the time, and a lot of people don't want to take it seriously. But here I go. Gaslighting involves making you doubt your reality. That is the bottom line of what the definition is. So statements like, that never happened. That never happened. Oh, you're imagining things. How many of you have gone through that? These tactics can make you question your reality, your sanity, and it makes you feel powerless. When you're in a relationship with someone that is constantly using gaslighting, you start feeling, for lack of a better word, crazy. Now, I don't know how many of you are in a relationship like that or have been or are healing from a relationship like that, but I can tell you that when you are in a relationship like that, you do start feeling crazy. You literally start feeling all sorts of emotional dysregulation. From personal experience, I remember feeling that I was there was something wrong with me. That was the first time I realized that I wasn't okay. I went to the doctor. The doctor did a test on me. And I don't remember if it was an MRI. It was one of those tests with imaging. And that's when he could tell that I was going through something that wasn't healthy. And I had to be honest with him. He was the first person that I was honest about what I was going through because he could see it in the images. And this is why you can see the damages of trauma, prolonged trauma, gaslighting in images. It actually does affect your brain. So gaslighting is something that it does affect your reality, but it does chip away at your brain. It hurts you because you're constantly being like, whoa, wait, but I remember that's not the way that it happened. And you start feeling crazy and anxious and worn down and depressed and tired and all of these things. And then you're trying to keep it together for your kids, and you, in front of your kids, everything is okay. So therefore, that takes even more energy. So all of these things are happening. Little did I know that they were also being kind of like gaslighted at the same time, and they were aware of everything. But my point is, gaslighting is something that when you realize it's happening, finding it, it's not going to work as much, because if the person that's gaslighting you doesn't see it, doesn't want to see it, things are perfect, it's never going to stop. Your only out is just to get out of the relationship, get out of the relationship safely. So that is something that makes a person toxic. Number 3, boundary violations. Toxic people often push past your limits and make you feel guilty for having boundaries. I always tell my kids that this is the key statement. And I know it's hard for kids to say, but I wish someone had taught me this sooner. When you react to someone's disrespect, you're just reacting to their disrespect. And that's okay to say. So if someone is disrespecting you and you're putting a limit, and they say, like, why are you doing that to me? Why are you being so mean? You're not being mean. Like I tell my kids, you are reacting to their disrespect. So you can say, wait a minute, I'm not being mean. I'm reacting to your disrespect. And again, I think this is a very valid statement, because oftentimes someone that's toxic doesn't want to hold themselves accountable. And that's the key here, guys. Someone that's toxic doesn't have the tools to hold themselves accountable. They weren't taught. They weren't modeled. They may have had trauma. They may have lived through someone that was abusive. Whatever it is, they are not emotionally mature. So therefore, they have no clue how to do this. They can be someone that just obviously doesn't have the empathy. So the whole part of a toxic person is that they just don't have the means, the emotional means. It's like money. You don't have the means to buy a car. Emotionally, this person, toxic person, doesn't have the means, the emotional means to give this safety, emotional safety to you. So when something is happening, they don't have the means to say, I'm sorry, I did this, and hold themselves accountable. So they're going to find any way in the world to push back, and they have to be perfect, because they cannot not be perfect. They cannot be the ones, because if they're the ones that made the mistake, something bad is happening inside of them. Criticism, shame, all of these things. So toxic people often push past your limits and make you feel guilty for having boundaries. For example, if you say to something reasonable, they may frame you as selfish or uncaring. Emotional instability. That's the other one. Unpredictable outbursts or extreme mood swings can make relationships with toxic people feel like walking on eggshells. Guys, I don't know if anybody out there that's listening to me is currently in this situation, and I want to send you all the positive energy and strength that you need. Walking on eggshells is the most difficult thing, because you never know when they're going to snap, right? So you're like drained, emotionally dysregulated, thinking that everybody's going to be snapping at you. So you're the person that with your friends or with other people, you're like, sorry, sorry, sorry. Is everything okay? Oh, I'm so sorry. Because you're used to someone snapping at you all the time. Because you never know what will trigger their anger or emotional withdrawal. So that makes someone very toxic, when someone has that emotional instability. The other thing is chronic negativity. Someone that is toxic individuals often bring a cloud of pessimism everywhere they go. Their negativity can be contagious, turning even joyful moments into something stressful or exhausting. Have you ever been in a situation with people and everything is just like bad? Like, sorry guys, I hit the microphone. Everything is like negative, like everything is the worst. I don't want to be here. Oh, we're going to be late. Or, these people, or it's just, they're just angry. They're just negative and it just wears people down. So one of the other traits of a toxic person is that cloud of pessimism, right? How is it that they can be so negative? Instead of seeing the glass half full, they are always seeing the glass half empty. So what causes toxic behavior? So many things. Toxic behavior just doesn't happen because in a vacuum. So let's talk about what might cause someone to develop these traits, these patterns. Well, guys, like I was saying before, I kind of like started threading a little bit on this unresolved trauma. The reality is, yes, kids don't come with a manual, and I'm not justifying or explaining this. Trust me, as someone that has gone through this, I'm not explaining. I'm not justifying it. I'm just explaining it. Unresolved trauma. Many people who display these toxic traits have experienced unresolved trauma, just such as past abuse or neglect. These are people that experiences can lead them to have defensive behaviors where control or blame become a shield. People that parents were very critical of them, where they never received emotional stability. People that the mom was overly critical, or the dad, or they were absent, or people that had everything they needed and more material wise, but emotionally, none of it. People that were abused, people that were bullied, whatever it is, they just cannot, all of this just becomes a big shield for them because that it's just a defensive behavior. Another thing that can develop into this behavior is insecurity and fear. A lot of these people, they have a deep fear of rejection or inadequacy, which can drive people to manipulate or control their surroundings. They may think, if I control this person or situation, I won't get hurt again. Now think about it. Logically, I can understand why they would do that. But of course, it doesn't make sense when you think about it because you're hurting someone else. How much can you control? You're hurting a person. But that's how they see it. They think if I could control someone, no one else is going to bully me. No one else is going to hurt me. No one else is going to criticize me. Now, number 3, model behavior. Think about it. If they lived in a house where they were raised by people with toxic households, yes, they unknowingly replicate that behavior. So when it comes to model behavior, people raised in toxic households may unknowingly replicate the patterns they grew up around. So if manipulation or criticism was normalized, they may adopt these behaviors without realizing their harm. And then mental health factors. In some cases, guys, untreated mental health, and this is a big one, untreated mental health issues such as narcissistic tendencies or personality disorders, they may play a role in toxic behavior. So seeking professional support is extremely important because it can make a difference, a significant difference in breaking the cycles. Another thing is, believe it or not, things are simple. And I say simple because in the big scheme of problems, as someone that has ADHD and autism, I think it's simple. Something like undiagnosed ADHD and autism, untreated OCD, things like that untreated can make someone feel a lot of shame. Someone with untreated depression, untreated OCD, untreated autism, that can cause someone a lot of shame. That shame turns into anger. Those things turn into being defensive, not being emotionally able to regulate themselves. And that in itself is going to cause someone to be toxic. So that's why untreated mental health conditions can cause this behavior. And then there's cultural and societal expectations. This one is something that I don't think a lot of people think about. And I think we need to start paying more attention to this because cultural norms and societal pressures can also contribute to toxic behaviors. In some cultures, for example, emotional vulnerability may be stigmatized. And this leads people to suppress their feelings and lash out in harmful ways. Societal expectations around gender roles, for example, success, family dynamics. This can perpetuate toxic patterns where individuals feel they must meet impossible expectations, impossible standards, or uphold outdated values. How many cultures have these outdated values that the man is supposed to do this and have marry at this age, have this job at this age, have this amount of money at this age. And again, I'm not justifying it. I'm just explaining that it does bring toxic patterns. And then we have the women that then she marries into the family and she has to keep the house a particular way. And then if the husband is temperamental, she doesn't want the children to react in a way that makes him angry. So then she becomes the toxic one to keep the kids under control. And it becomes a cycle. So, how can we protect ourselves? How to protect yourself from this type of behavior? Now that we've discussed the signs and causes, how can we focus on that? So, let's focus on what you can do to protect yourself if you ever have to be dealing with someone who exhibits toxic behaviors. So, here are some actionable strategies to help you regain your emotional peace. Set clear boundaries. I know we talked about how they don't respect the boundaries, but boundaries are essential. Be firm, but kind. You can say things like, I'm not comfortable discussing this topic, or I need to take a break if this conversation becomes disrespectful. Remember, boundaries are important. Your boundaries are for your protection, not a punishment for the other person. So if the other person wish they will, says that or calls you or says something about your boundaries because they want to push your limit, it doesn't matter. Ground yourself by saying, am I being disrespectful? No, check. Did I yell? No, check. Is the person being toxic? Yes. So of course they're going to do that. And just keep going and doing what you're doing because what you're doing is the right thing. Just because you're putting a boundary and they're not respecting it doesn't mean that you're doing something wrong. It's just the way they're reacting and that's on them. Number 2, practice self-compassion. When dealing with toxic behavior, you might internalize the blame. And I get this. And you may think, maybe I'm the problem. But I want you to remember that you're not responsible for fixing someone else's emotional wounds. You guys, it took me more than 12 years to realize. I tried more than 12 years to fix someone else's emotional wounds. And I learned that I wasn't able to because at the end of the day, they need to be aware that they need to change their wounds. They need to be aware that they have emotional wounds. If they don't see the wounds, they won't fix them. And there comes a point that you're realizing that you're getting hurt, other people are getting hurt, and it's just for what? For nothing, for more anger because they literally don't see it. All they do is just blame you. So be gentle with yourself and remind yourself of your worth. Know your worth. Guys, please, if there's one takeaway from this episode that I want you to have is that know your worth. It is very important. Sometimes people don't see the problem they have, and it's just their loss. It's on them. It has nothing to do with you. Number 3, limit exposure. Honestly, guys, if possible, you have to minimize the contact with that toxic person. And I know this is hard. I want to acknowledge and validate in this space right now. I know it's hard. But if possible, minimize contact with toxic people, toxic individuals, especially if they show no willingness to change. For example, if you have a toxic coworker, limiting conversations to work-related topics can help protect your peace. If you have a toxic friend, limit the information that you give. Don't give so much information. Don't give personal information or information that can be weaponized or used against you. And I want to make a particular statement here. Sometimes, Annie, but what happens if the toxic person is my mom, my dad, my uncle, a family member? That's a hard one. And I've heard that a lot in sessions. So I'm going to say the following. I understand when it comes to family members, we have to take into account upbringing, your values, your culture, and I don't want to invalidate all of those things that are very important to you. So I think each case is important. How you guys take all of those things into account, your religion, and all of those things. But I just want to say in this space that you are worth a lot. You are important, and your feelings are important. And a toxic person is a toxic person, regardless of who they are. And if it's hurting you, then you have to see what you're going to do about that. If it's a family member, I always say if it's really affecting you, that the way that you behave with your kids affects you, the way that you behave with other people is affecting your self-worth, your self-esteem, your health, because guys, all of this, our body keeps the score. And there's literally a book about this. So all I'm saying is, keep that in mind when you're trying to think, but it's my mom, it's my dad. And I'm not trying to encourage anybody to break relationships with their father or mothers. No. I always say, try therapy, try having conversations. But after therapy and all of that, comes a point that you realize they're just not doing anything because they are not realizing it. Then you have to revisit that and you have to think about what's best for you and your family. Then build a support system. And this one is very important. Build a support system. When you build a support system, it's going to help you. When you surround yourself with people who uplift you and support you, trusted friends, family, or support groups online, support groups outside, if you're an athlete, go run, whatever it is, painting, whatever it is, support groups that can offer a reality check when toxic dynamics make you doubt yourself. This is so vital. You guys, I cannot stress enough how important my support system has been during my healing journey. That was the most important thing I've had throughout my divorce, before the divorce, when I was in the nitty-gritty, when I was going through it. I didn't even know how bad I was. And my support system was vital for my safety. So you do need a support system that hits like a reality check when, hey, you know what? That's very toxic. That's not safe. And seek some professional help. Professional support is important because it validates whether your friends, your support system is exaggerating or not. And it helps you be like, hey, like, you know what? Like my doctor did. You are not in a safe situation. Look at this test. This shows that your brain is not okay, which means you're getting this. You're in an abusive situation. So working with a professional, with a coach or a therapist, those are things that can help you unpack all those emotional situations, that emotional impact of the toxic relationships. And it's going to help you rebuild your confidence. They can also help you develop strategies tailored to your unique situation, which is important. Now, how do we go about healing from toxic people? How do we heal from toxic situations? Now, I understand that healing from toxic relationships is not easy, but we can do it. Loving or setting boundaries with someone toxic can be challenging, especially if they're a family member, like I said, or a close friend. However, healing is possible. It takes time, but you can do it. I always say it's literally step by step, baby steps. But before you know it, you look back and you're like, wow, all that time has passed. So allow yourself to grieve. This is very important. It is normal to grieve the relationship you hope you've had with this person. It is you plan a life with this person. Let's say it's your family. Let's say it's just your husband, your wife. You literally had a whole visual of what your life was going to be. Sorry, I hit the mic. I apologize, guys. So imagine you already had planned your life. So journaling or talking to someone you can trust can help you process your emotions. You're grieving. Grieving is not only when someone passes away, grieving is grieving a life that you hope you had, grieving a job, grieving at anything like you're losing, that you're changing, that you thought you had. Then number 2, rebuild your confidence. Affirmations, self-care, routines, celebrating small victories can help restore your self-esteem. Remind yourself of your strength and the positive relationships in your life. You need to focus on yourself. You need to focus on rebuilding, and you can do it. And you need this reminder so that it can show you that there is a lot more in your life than just that thing that you just lost. Focus on self-growth. Toxic relationships can feel like they hold you and like they have everything and they hold you back. But once you've created space, guys, use that. Use that to start building up. Once you've created space, use that freedom to pursue things that nourish your growth. So whether it's learning a new skill, investing in your passions, or connecting with a supportive community, build yourself up. And can I say something? When you start building yourself up, it's going to start making you feel those happy hormones. And that's going to start making it feel better. The small steps are going to start making it feel a little bit better. Slowly but surely, you're going to get there. So, what do I think that we guys should do? What is my call to action, if you will? Before we wrap up, I want to leave you with this. Protecting your peace isn't selfish. So my conclusion and my call to action to all of you out there is the following. Protect your peace. If there's something I want you to take away from this episode is, and I want to leave you with, protecting your peace isn't selfish. It's necessary for your well-being. You deserve relationships that nourish, not drain, your spirit. So if today's episode resonates with you, please, I want you to think about everything we've talked about and just remember, you need things that lift you up. In the times that we're living in, guys, that it's so chaotic, protecting your peace, I think, is very important. So if this resonates with you, consider sharing it with someone, and you think of someone that might need to hear it, please consider sharing it. And remember to subscribe to the Unmask Your Mind podcast, to my website, and for more conversation on mental wellness and personal growth, you can also look for me on Instagram at unmask.your.mind. And also, don't forget to download our free guides on my website. It's packed with resources to help you through all of this. Stay grounded, stay calm during all these difficult moments. You can find the link on the show notes or on our website. Thank you so much for spending this time with me. I appreciate, as always, you coming and joining me. Until next time, take care of yourself, set those boundaries, and keep unmasking your true self.